Alright, welcome back everyone. Today we are working on our car trailer, or cargo hauler, this big guy. 20 foot, 12,000 gross, dual braking axles. Today we're servicing the axles, checking out the brakes, and let me get you guys situated here. Checking out all the brakes, greasing the bearings, touch up paint in the fender wells, things like that. Making sure there's no problems anywhere because they haven't done it in a good year and a half. So that's what we're doing today. And hopefully you guys got a decent amount of lighting. Quite frankly, you can only see what I can see. Got a bearing packer, this guy, and then some basic hand tools. Now we just went around, checked all the springs, make sure all the hoops are okay. Check for any brakes. Haven't seen any. So that's what we're doing today. We already did the other 3 axles. Figured I'd save the last one for a video. I had to figure out where some of the stuff went because brother was working on the other one for me. I got a ladder right behind me, but it's just a big pressing tool for the bearing, or not the bearing, but the seals. There'll be a little more room over here, but I figure the barn's only 30 feet long. The trailer's 24 feet long. And from the pole to here, I think is 10 feet, maybe 12 feet, and the trailer is 84 or 92, something like that. So there's a whole lot of wiggle room in here. I don't know if you guys can see here. It's kind of hard to see. We can get you guys closer. Yeah, just enough to put you in my way, but enough so I can still work. Now we do got to replace these rubber plugs. They're rotted. It says TRP on them. Not sure if that's the actual name for them, but I gotta see if I can find some new ones. They'll work for now. But I'm gonna start by getting the cotter pin off. Put down a piece of rag to put your old parts on. So far we've replaced nothing except grease and adjusted up the bearings. This stuff is very runny, very wore out. That's why we're doing it. The grease buddies work well on this trailer. Never had a problem. But I was getting to that point where I wanted to inspect the brakes and make sure that they're actually doing their job. Because the trailer goes out of state many times a year and can have very little weight, or it can be at max payload. So enough chit chat here, we're just going to get down to it. Cotter pin, I do not reuse them. It ain't worth it. Some do, your preference. Spin the nut off here, and then assuming that the brakes aren't too tight, they might just come off. The old bearing, the washer, and we got right behind the camera. I got a blue shop towel on the ground that I'm putting each piece on. But see if the brakes are thin enough to get me slided out. I might actually have to adjust it down. I think I'm going to have to. So I go underneath the back side of the trailer, pull out the plug so I get to my star adjuster and adjust down the brakes. So I take you back there with me, but you're really not going to be able to see me go back there and just click it down. Now let me crawl under here. Just leave the camera rolling. There's nothing different than your brakes on your car. The only thing different on these is there's no auto adjust. It simply is just a spring that holds the adjuster from, essentially moving around on it. Should be enough. A dozen clicks, which is like equals out to maybe 3/16, and then it should unhook. And what I do is I put the nut back on, and I'm using this nut to help remove the seal in the back. So when you slide it out, your drum is a slide hammer. This back of the nut catches the bearing and pulls your seal out. Because otherwise, there's not too many good ways to get it out without hurting the seal, and these seals can be used at least more than once, assuming that it comes out nicely. So, here we go. There you go. And you just slide the old bearing, and here's your seal. Fully intact. Sometimes the inner spring might fall out a little bit, but it's still in perfectly good shape. So that's pretty much the easiest way to do it. You might be able to get back there with a screwdriver and hit the bearing, tap it out, but this works really good. I've never had a problem. Those of you who might have done it different ways, go ahead and throw it in the comments. If you guys have another tool that you've used that does not hurt the seal in any way, or the bearing. But that was how I go about it. That's why I pull this grease off. It's really runny, really wore out. It's out of my specs as far as I'm concerned. I don't like it that thinned out. The brakes are in great shape on this trailer. Probably got another few years in them, depending on travel. I make some room because I'm going to drop the drum to knock the rest of the stuff out of it. You probably felt that or heard that in the camera. But then I was going to hose this up with brake cleaner. I'm going to use fluid film on the adjusters because it's an anti-corrosion inhibitor, and just clean it all off. Adjust it back up, clean the drum, clean the grease, and we'll put it back together. So I guess to start off with, I'll move my drum out of the way, and we're going to hose it down. No, there's no drain pan. Just don't care for it. There's my shop for it, so. I always got brake cleaner. Stuff is amazing. Trying to put the hose on with grease on my gloves. Not working out so well. Come on. Fine, whatever. Alright, well that dries off. Spring's still intact in the back. There's no crap on the magnet. And then we usually take the grease gun and we'll make sure that this fitting isn't clogged up in any way. All of them haven't been, they've all been okay, so I imagine this one will be fine. Right. There we go. So this one is not clogged, and we just purged that with some fresh red grease. This is high temp wheel bearing grease. It's by Traveler, and I get it at Tractor Supply. Use what you want, as long as it's at least a high temp, and preferably made for wheel bearings, but it's entirely on you. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push all this grease out of this drum and just push it right out with some rags. I would show you that, but my hands are so greasy I don't want to touch my hammer. We're just using normal household towels, paper towels, to do this part instead of the shop towels, because, you know, shop towels cost substantially more. Ew. And then once you get the majority of it out, I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not, but it should be pretty clean in there. Now you can get as picky as you would like as far as getting it all out. I mean, you can spend an amount of time on it, but quite frankly, this isn't worth it. I just want to get the most of it to where I'm satisfied, and then just reassemble. It might appear that I'm doing this in a rush, but I'm really not. I've done it enough times. So yeah, now we're down to cleaning up the bearings and putting them back in the drum. So make sure you hold out the drum, get all the contaminants out, because that's where your trailer magnet actuator runs. So you don't want any crap in there. I believe these are Dexter axles. Let's see. I think they're 7,000 pound axles a piece for 6,500. One of the two. Haven't had any problems with anything except for the paint starting to come off everything, but trailer we've had it for, I don't know, 6-7 years. Now, as far as your bearings go, if you got a parts washer, you know, you can just hose these off in your parts washer. If you don't, some paper towels, some brake cleaner, you know, that'll still get the job done. And then I have a bearing packer. If you don't have one, you can do it the old way, which is basically put a big thing of grease in the palm of your hand, and you push the bearing cage to one side, and you kind of take it, put the grease here, and take this, and you push it over, and you just kind of keep slapping it around until it comes back out the other side. But the bearing packer is much more efficient, and I don't want to say it does a better job, but it does do a very good job. The bearing packer looks like this. It's usually all greased up, and you just push down on this and it forces the grease up the bottom. And if you can get it out of the bottom of it, it usually looks like that when you're done. You know, there's no such thing as not enough grease. And I know some axles have, they call them an oil bath, but it's basically gear oil inside, but I absolutely do not like those. I think it's a bad idea, because that seal goes bad, all that gear oil floods onto your brakes, and now you've got smoking problems, no brakes, or all kind of random issues you're going to have. So I prefer grease every way, shape, or form. Much more reliable, it's easier to maintain. But if you prefer your oil bath bearings, that's okay. Everybody's got their thing that they prefer. I mean, you can fix one of these axles a lot quicker than the grease or the oil-filled ones, just for the time it takes to, you know, get all the stuff off. Plus, you can't reuse that seal. If there's a slight imperfection in that seal, you know, now the gear oil's leaking out. So that's just my take on that. And this is the seal. It's going to clean it up and then pound it back in. Now, next time I probably won't reuse these seals. You know, I'll probably just get a whole new hub assembly once the brakes are wore out. Which probably won't be for at least another year or two. We'll see how it goes. And then this is what I'm using to install. Let me get it out here. Put this on here, thread this in, and I use it to beat the seal in. And I take this back off, and then I use it to put the cap on at the end. Because if you put this on with this nut in here, you'll hit your jerk fitting, and then you're going to get really mad when you got to pull the axle back apart. Make sure I didn't do anything wrong here, because I am chatting while I'm doing this. Space the right direction. Seal. Okay. See if I can't tilt you guys down. So seal's in there. I'm going to set this here. I'm going to whack it with a hammer till it's just about flush or a little below, and then the seal will be in. of light. And you give that one a little too much whack-a-mole there, a little further, and then I don't like it. Well, I guess we'll try and pull it out a little. I don't like it up there in there. I gotta re-clean everything. Come on. I don't know why I want to have to do that twice. It'll be alright. We're going to pack in the seal with grease here. The spring on this in the back side of the seal got a little stretched out a little more than I'd like to have had on that round, but it'll be alright. Seals in for the second time. If you drive the seal in too deep, your bearing will hit it and grind away at it. I guess that'll be good. Alright, now we're down to, bring a little bit of grease up here. And slide it off. Get it slid up there. Try not to touch the mating surface. Like that. My knees and stuff are going to sleep from kneeling here. And I did not prepare my other bearing, so hopefully it stays up there like a good boy. in there, do the old push. Turn the other. Alright, so now I'm tightening it all up. Now I like to take this as tight as I can get it, and make sure everything's seated, and then I back everything up. So right there, because I try and go one more, you know, I really got to pull on it hard. I don't like that. So I back it up one notch. And pretty good, because if I go another notch, it's just too loose. I mean, won't work well. I mean, there are torque specs for stuff. If you have them on hand, quite frankly, I mean, I don't, but I don't need them. And then now you've got to find a solder pin, which are somewhere. Too big or not? You do want to make sure that this thing does not hit your cap. Otherwise it will tear a hole through it, and then you're going to be really upset. So I usually go down to the bottom. Make sure you check your pieces so they don't go in your tires. And I just bend them this way. There's going to be a lot of controversy on how to bend the solder pin. Just bend it so it doesn't come back out. That's the way I see it. And then there's the old cap. And I'm just going to take these, pull that out, take this off, you're going to hit it in. Obviously, like I said, the cotter pin's in. I did tighten the nuts, the bearing, and all the pieces are in. Double check. Alright. Now I just gotta go underneath, adjust up the brakes, and pump it full of grease. So again, I'll go underneath there and adjust these up. I know what else I forgot to do when I had it apart. I had fluid film my star adjuster. I can still do it. The reason I prefer to have done this prior to putting the drum on, so I don't want it getting all over my drum inside. It has borderline tight there. Take it down one click. I think I'll leave it there. Alright. Got my batteries. And now the fun part is to get some of the stuff out of the way. So now we're going to sit here and pump it full of grease. Do a couple of pumps, spin it, Usually takes about a half a tube. Electric ones work better for this. Or air powered. You'll know when it's cold and the grease starts coming out the front. Okay. The other things to look for is check your these spring hangers for cracks, bolts not being tight. Yeah, I see that weld there is not completely where it should be. You want to make sure there's no bushings, no wallowed out holes, no breaks in the springs. Like I said, we don't have a ton of miles. I think we got between 8,000 or 10,000 on it. The other thing to check when this thing is, not on the road. Now I'm down to basically put the tire on. I do gotta. What did I do with it? I've been using fluid film. I just sprayed it on the shackle stuff. The first year doing that. Try and help prevent it from rusting out and keep the bushings hopefully from seizing up as bad. Since this is an articulating system where they both have to move together. So you want to spray those down. And stuff will soak in over time. Help prevent future problems. I use fluid film religiously. And all we gotta do is just hit the rusty spots paint, and should be good as new. I don't generally paint the drums. And I just gotta put the plug in the back. This is this little guy. I'll put the tire. And then the only thing I'm a little concerned about is that spring. I don't normally use the steel more than once or twice for that reason, so technically that was its second time being used. So the next time that this has to get done, the trailer gets new seals, keep capping all my batteries. And I've got black spray paint on me. Wonderful. So yeah, better for worse. That's how we basically service our trailer brakes, assuming you don't need brakes. And if you do, I recommend just buying the whole thing. Take the 4 bolts out of the back, take the wires off, go to the trailer dealer, and just buy the whole thing. You probably don't know if you get a drum with it or not. That might cost more, but just buy the whole backing plate assembly. It comes completely assembled, ready to go. Just pop it on there with the 4 bolts, adjust it up, do the wires, grease it and ship it. We did rotate the tires. And some of our tires here are having flat spots in them from either being dragged or from either skidding from time to time, or when you're turning, you're dragging one axle over the other. So what we did is we took this tire, came from the other side in the back, this front tire went to the back, and the same thing. We crisscrossed them. That way there we can try and change the wear a little bit. So we like to get another 2 seasons out of them. And then the few things we still got left to do is we got to check the frame, front to back, underneath, make sure there's no frame breaks, no problems anywhere. Then I got to grease the hitch up front, I got to grease the stand. We're thinking about putting a new 7-pin pigtail in. It's getting a little tired. Just do some more touch-up painting along the deck, and then this thing will be done for the coming year. That won't be all tonight. I probably may or may not record all that because, like I said, it's simply, coming up here. We're just going to spray fluid film on all this stuff, pop some grease into zerk fitting, and then this 7-pin here. This isn't supposed to pull apart. And then we put a new box on, it's zip tied on because the box got hit at one point. But it still works fine, there's no problems. And then as far as touch-up paint goes, kind of like the rock chips here, other spots on the deck. I'm trying to keep the trailer nice. I don't like our trailers and equipment looking bad. They're pretty well taken care of. I wouldn't say money's not an option type of thing or a problem, but I sure definitely don't want having equipment problems when I avoided it. Because I think right now this whole job, we're $50 in, basically grease, some paint, paper towel stuff, and that's about it. Now, if we needed brakes, obviously that would be a different story. We'd be spending a few $100s. So I think it's either $50 or $80 per wheel. So it'd be like $200 or $300, which isn't all that much considering. Now, if we actually had taken it somewhere to have them work on it, you know, it would cost substantially more because now we're paying labor for, you know, X amount of people or personnel involved. Because, you know, not everybody can work on their own stuff. You know, I'm fortunate enough to know how to do all this. You know, if that is the case, you know, go to either the trailer place you bought it from, assuming that they offer, you know, trailer repair, or, you know, a decent sized company that can work on trailers. I know where I work, we're able to do it. We've done a couple, but yeah. You know, and like I said, trailer maintenance is a big thing. There's a lot of trailers out there that are not maintained. There's a lot of trailers out there that shouldn't even be on the road. You know, I see them every day. You know, then you've got the trailers that are very well maintained. So, I guess it all depends on the person. But that's about it. I just wanted to do a video today, guys, on you know, maintenance on your trailer axles. You know, the rest of this stuff is just do as your heart desires. If you don't want to paint it, don't paint it. If you don't want to grease anything else, don't grease anything else. But yeah, because I'm not going to do this will be the only video for the trailer to show how I do it. Yeah, that seal, I'm a drop worried about it. But it should be fine. Like I said, they're not, all that spring does is keep that seal tight to the spindle. I mean, it did go on fairly good, so I'll watch it. If it gives me a problem, I'll put a new seal in it. I mean, like I said, there aren't too many ways to get that seal out. And first time I took it out, it was fine. If I would have hit it probably once or twice, it would have came out better versus me doing it 3 and 4 times. That's probably why it got a little stretched. But like I said, it'll be good. So I'm not going to bore you guys with my mess down here of grease and crap everywhere. So I'm going to try and move some of this stuff. You know, put some gloves on here. I'll bring you guys back in a couple of minutes. I think my camera somehow here is shifted. Alright, so we're down to put the tire on. And then we're just going to use a borrow 1/2-inch impact here. I do have the Milwaukee 1/2-inch, but I really don't need it to tighten the lug nuts up. Because when we're done, we're torquing these anyways to, I want to do it 120. Now, if you just want to run them out with your impact, go for it. I want to know that they're all consecutively torqued where they need to be. So like I said, I'm looking at getting some new ones of these. I don't know if they're going to be Amazon based or not. come back in with the ratchet and torque bar, and we'll tighten these all up. But there you have it. So like that, you got it on jack stands, and then the tongue jack up there is what's holding the front. And then we got the tire pressure. They should all be at 80 psi. And that'll be about it for trailer maintenance, at least this time around. So, if there's any questions regarding what I did, you can leave them in the comments below. This is just how we go about it. Everybody's got their thing, but that's about all. Guys, I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.